I'm Patrick Bailey with whiteboardcoder.com. Today is December 18th, 2017, and in this video I'll be going over webhooks. In particular, I'll be talking about how to connect a Distilio outgoing webhook into a SlacK incoming webhook so you can post messages that are generated from Distilio into a SlacK room. Okay, one of the main reasons I'm doing this is because I steered someone slightly wrong. I gave them the right information, but it wasn't quite fully correct in this instance with how Distilio can work. And this is Derek R3D. So he asked me some questions on how to get Distilio to talk to SlacK. Because apparently he kind of got it working and it broke or something. And I had some more information on that. And I kind of steered him a little bit wrong. And so I decided to go look into it and fix it in two ways. And the first way I'm going to cover this video. How do you just simply get it to talk to SlacK? And if you want some more information on how to set up SlacK webhooks, which I'm not going to go over in this video. I'm going to assume that you already know that. If you don't, you can go watch this video where the question was asked, setting up and using SlacK webhooks that I did earlier. Now, what I tried to tell him, which is true, is in the case if you have something that has an outgoing webhook, like Distilio, and Distilio, if you're not familiar with it, and I wasn't last week until he brought it up, it's a website where I guess you can register a website. You can put a website on there, and it will check it periodically. And so I think the free version will check every 10 hours. If you pay for it, there's different tiers. The first tier will go down to like every 10 minutes. I think you can pay for it every 2 minutes. And so I think it's just checking to see if a website changed. And if it did change, it will send you an email. Or you can send a webhook. And what a webhook is, if you're unfamiliar with that, is in this case an outgoing webhook. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to go make a hook somewhere else, so please send data to that other server and I'll grab it and do something with it. And what I was trying to tell him when I did a brief look at Distilio is that it could be hard to get it to talk to a SlacK incoming webhook, depending on how they set it up, because at first glance it looks like they didn't do any custom settings to talk to SlacK. And I say that because of this. If you set up a SlacK incoming webhook and you're familiar with that, you have to send data to that SlacK incoming webhook in a certain format. You can't just send text, it'll pop through. You have to send a JSON file that has everything correctly formatted that SlacK expects to see, and then it can take that JSON format and do something with it. Like you can tell it, okay, send it to this room, send this text to this room from this user. And it has to be formatted in a certain way, otherwise SlacK just will get the data and not know what to do with it. So if you... So I was assuming what they had set up was something similar to what I used in the past on PagerDuty. And PagerDuty could have since changed, because I haven't fiddled with them in about a year. But on PagerDuty, you could say, hey, when this page goes off, hook into these webhooks. And you could say, hook into this custom webhook, go to this location, and then PagerDuty would make a custom, I shouldn't say custom, it would create their JSON file and send their JSON file to whatever webhook you decided to send it to. And then your webhook had to know how to read a PagerDuty file to be able to do something with it. But they also, they also knew that SlacK was a big deal. So out of all that, you could actually say, okay, add a webhook, and it's a SlacK webhook, and you could put some information in there, and PagerDuty would do the work to create the correct information that SlacK would expect. And so it actually worked pretty well. And so when I looked at Distilio, I looked at it at first glance and saw, yeah, you can make webhooks, but, they don't have a custom SlacK choice. And so you're probably going to have a problem there, because it's going to format it in its custom way and send it to SlacK, and it's not going to work. So with that, it does do that, but you actually in Distilio are allowed to customize a little bit in such a way that it will actually work in a SlacK room. And so that's what I'm going to be going over in this video. If I'm showing you how to do this, you can kind of ignore this photo I've been showing you this entire time. Because if you cannot format the outgoing webhook in a certain way that SlacK understands, you're going to have to have something sit in between. Like a Lambda, AWS Lambda, which I think I'm going to do a video on shortly on how to do that. Or a custom server that's going to grab that and do that. But I'm not going to do that in this video. This video, there's enough tweaks that you can do on Distilio's side to customize it to actually have it work in a SlacK room. Okay, just as a test, I can do a quick curl from my command line that will post in one of my rooms. And so I'm going to do that really quickly and show you what's going on. Okay, so in this, I'm doing a content type application JSON. I'm posting it, and here's my JSON data that I'm sending. It's going to have text and my test. So that's a simple text that SlacK will understand and post it. And then, of course, there's my webhook, which I'm graying out. But if I run this, I should get an OK returned. And there we go, my test. So it popped in there into my general room. And so there's a lot more that we can add to this. And you can send it to a room. You can have it do different text and yada, yada, yada. But there it's working. So how do I get Distilio to post to that? It looks like I can. So I can do a little bit of, I don't want to say cheating, but I'll just, I can use their webhook, and they've actually made it so you can custom configure it to a point. So here I'll come in here and say I'll add a web page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just watch a page that I made. Boom, I'm going to watch that page. There's my source. And select contents, full page, because it's a pretty boring page. Page, my page. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I can come down here. I was copying them from last time. Okay. So I'll get rid of that, and get rid of that. I guess it was copying my webhooks from last time. But I can come down here in Distilio, and any other thing that has a webhook, outgoing webhook, should have something similar to this, where you're going to add something. So I'll add a call to a webhook. And in here, I could make some RESTful service that's going to call to, but in this case, I want it to send it directly to SlacK. And so I will post my SlacK webhook, and then click on options, and we open up these fields. Now, luckily for us, we do need to send a header, which is the content JSON, but in this case, I think it already sent it to you, but I will put it in there just for completeness. So I will put a content type application JSON, because it expects that. I think it's already saying it, but just to be complete. And then over here, we've got some IDs that it gives us. So we have this sev ID, sev name, and all that fun stuff that we, I guess, are variables. I shouldn't guess. I fiddled with them. They are variables that we can get from Distilio. But for now, I want to narrow things down. So right now, I just want to send just text. And if I delete all these and say text, and I put my Distilio test, that should work. Just because it will create a JSON string that is the correct format, it will put that text in there, just like we sent over here, text, and it'll actually put some information in there, and that, in theory, should work. And so if I save this, and so that one's on, maybe I'll delete this whole one. Oh, test already worked. So it did its first test, and there you go, my Distilio test, it worked. So it sent a file, it's sent to my SlacK room just simply. And so if that's enough for you, you're done. But if you want to customize it and make it a little bit more, a little fancier and a little bit better formatted, there's a few things. You can't get too fancy because they don't have subfields and all this stuff, but you can make it fancier than what it was. So what we can do is we can come down here, and if I look over here and use my cheat sheet where I posted a how-to on SlacK a long time ago on my blog site, I can come down here and see here's a somewhat simple format where I can enter some more values, and I can get something cool like this where I can actually get an icon, a username, kind of like a title, and I can actually get a bar over here of different colors based on what I want. And so with that, let's kind of go one piece at a time. So what we might want to do is, well, I can't go that far, can I? No, I can't go that far because it's got nested stuff. But I can do a little bit better. I can, how good can I get? I can at least send it to rooms. And I can send it to, and I can set the emojis. And I can pull some of that text out that I care about. So I can come back here and say, okay, that's good information, but let me give it a username. And so what I'm going to do is go back in here to the one that's on. Oh, not that one. Let me just delete this so it doesn't confuse me. Delete. Come back here in Distilio, edit the options, look at my webhooks, and I have a text, and that's just fine. And what I want to do now is I want to also add that some of the IDs that we can, that for those variables we can pass through. So we can actually pass through the URI, which is the URL that is testing. And that's kind of convenient because it can post it and you can link to it pretty quickly. And I not only want to do that, I want to do it as a username. And so there's a variable in here I can do username as far as SlacK is concerned. Username, and I can call it Distillio. Distillio, right? Distillio. And I can add, oops, not down there. I can add another field, and I can add icon emoji. If you're not aware of this, you can add little header emojis that will show up. You can use any of your emojis, and they'll actually show up right here. And so that's the default one, but in this case, I actually uploaded a Distillio one, which is not a default. You can upload your own emojis so that you can use them later for different things. But I uploaded Distillio, and that's what it happens to be. And so I'm going to copy what I called that. But if you don't have that and you just have a happy face, you can just use the happy face. Oh, you're not going to let me copy. So if I do Distillio, I'm going to test that, make sure it's correct. And in this case, it has to start and end with a colon. And I can add another field. Let's see, what else can I do? I can do a channel. So I should be able to override the default that I set up with my SlacK webhooks, which right now goes to general, and I can send it to a room that exists. So I should be able to do hashtag Distillio. I made a Distillio room. And so there's my Distillio room. So put a test in there, Distillio, and that, in theory, should work. So now if I save this, save it, and then I can go over to the actual site and I'll just edit it. Okay, I have it open over here. So I'll just edit it. So now it should say first edit. So first edit, so the page has changed. And now it should run. It runs every 10 minutes. It checked at 3:43, so how much time do I have? Oh, there we go. So I went through. So in that case, I could tell it what room to go to, and I could use one of the variables in the message, and I could say who it was from. And so there's some things I can't override, but that's, without getting too fancy, I think that's about all you could do. Because there's some other fancy things you can do with, if you look at Whiteboard Coder, you can go down here and see, you can get some pretty fancy stuff like this, but you're getting nested, and that might work, but I'm not going to fight with it myself right now, doing test after test after test. But that might be enough for most of you, and for most of us. Because really all I probably want to do for Distillio is I want it to go to a different channel. It's really nice to have a special icon for it and a special name for it, and then the information that it posts, and there you go. So, and then here's the actual page, so I can click on that and open that if that interests me for this particular guy. And so you could do a little bit more formatting, whatever information you want in there, but that is a good way to get your information from that outgoing webhook in Distillio into the incoming webhook in SlacK, but only because they allow you to actually customize it, and it works pretty well. So there you go, and it works pretty well, pretty simple. And I have to go send a message to Derek R3D and tell him that, yes, you can do it. There's a simple way, and it works pretty well. And I hope this helps someone out there. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. To subscribe, just click the subscribe button. Also, you can follow me on Twitter under the handle @whiteboardcoder.com. View any code I may have thrown up as a gist at GitHub under the username PatmanDenver, or check out my blog site at whiteboardcoder.com.